Have you ever wondered what your life could be like if you had applied principles that you actually know now into your life in the past? But you see, what's funny about that is oftentimes we make the mistake of thinking that the things that we believe currently right now are true just because we believe them until we get introduced into somebody that potentially could have given us that conscious interrupt that we needed to actually start questioning what it is that we actually believe. And so today, I'm actually going to be revealing to you what somebody did, which is absolutely powerful in itself as a testimony of what he was able to do within a short amount of time. But specifically, it was because of his faith to know that all things are possible with God. And so today, I'm here with my brother from another mother that we literally was able to get out of college together, right? And so we're just going to walk down this storyline as to who you are, and just what is it that you experienced from your past in terms of the things that you may have experienced. Like, what was your life like in the past to bring you to this point now?
Well, it's a lot to unpack there, but thank you for the introduction, Eli.
Absolutely.
I'd say, right now as of current, there's a lot of moving pieces in my life, a lot of, things I have in the works and things I'm planning. But it took a lot to get to this point. It didn't happen overnight. I'd say that, throughout my life, I was just kind of the person that I was just trying to get to the next point, the next checklist, next item, and just to get over things and kind of in a way just fleeing. Didn't really think too much of life until, like I said, I started to become a little bit more independent. And I started to, I'd say, like, gain a bit more confidence, over time in myself. Because a lot of times it's just, things I went through. I always just felt that, it's like, oh, why me kind of thing. But,
Right.
now that I'm like a lot older now, I have a different perspective. I just, instead of, just seeing things one way, I just keep an open mind and, keep a faith in it. Because I start to see, and that's the thing, over time, stuff starts to reveal itself. Because when you're in a moment, you can't see but only so much, because we're all human things. But
100%.
over time, I just see the things that, I feel God has done in my life. And I just hold true to that and hold there in it. And again, going to what I'm doing now, it's truly amazing because it's given me the ability to put my whole heart into things. I don't really look at setbacks and failure the same way. I look at it like almost an opportunity, like, okay, maybe I need to try something different, or maybe there's something I'm not looking at, something I'm missing. And even on the more positive stuff, sometimes when I'm getting blessed, I feel like that's likewise just as equal an opportunity. There's more should be doing. So I came from humble beginnings. I grew up in New York, so long ways
Right.
here now, and came down here, and for most of my part, most of my life, I kind of like been towards myself. But as I went to college and I got older, I started to expand more and get outside my comfortable zone. And sometimes I feel like life in a way kind of steers you towards things that ultimately are only going to help you if you choose to listen. That's the more important part. You got to listen,
Right.
and be willing. And a lot of times, sometimes I did, sometimes didn't. But I'm glad for the times I did, because I realized if I didn't, it's a totally different trajectory from the life I'm living now and the things I'm trying to accomplish. And more to that, like I said, I think the biggest thing now is that I started my company, and I recently bought myself a place of residence. And these were things at a point in time I could not see the old me ever coming close to envisioning something like this even being possible.
100%.
And still now, to a certain degree, I think back really to just keep myself humble, but also just to give thanks and be grateful that God has opened this opportunity. But also just as a testament that that's what it's going to take. That's what it is. It's just simply being persistent and holding a bit of resolve, and having the wisdom and to listen
Yeah.
to instructions, and doing things the first time, and not just doing it, but doing it, you know, when you feel light,
Yeah.
because it took a lot of risk. It took a lot of me just basically becoming a new person, and that's the thing. If you want something different to happen in your life, you're gonna have to do something different.
100%.
There's no magic. There is no special key or course no one can tell you.
Yeah.
It's just simply you gotta be willing to do something that you otherwise normally wouldn't be comfortable with. And whatever that means to you, that can mean a million different things to everyone, specifically. But we're all here for a reason.
Yeah.
I feel God has a purpose for everybody, and I know that comes to cliche at times, but I truly mean it. I never thought I'd be doing any of what I'm doing until now, and it really just took me, having a different perspective and having full faith in it, regardless of the outcome.
100%. And I want to ask you too a little bit more on that. Like you said, there was a perspective that you had to change, and not specifically the perspective you had to change yourself. It was something that you were seeking out for answers, and God was making it evident in your life that your life could actually change. As long as you, like you mentioned before, is when you're asking God for those questions of certainty, clarity, on your life, you're going to actually receive an answer. But the answer that he gives you, don't wait on it. Operate in the now. Do it now. Because if you put it off until tomorrow, you're going to forget, and you're going to go down that same rabbit hole of the old way of thinking that you used to do, which is what got you in those situations. And I love that. And so talk a little bit more about that in terms of the past, in terms of how you perceived life, like maybe even what you were doing at, your job previously. Then what were some of the things that you were doing then to be in that kind of environment where there were other individuals that believed that this is not possible for us to live a life outside of this, and they were wanting to settle into that. What actually started to become a lot more clear for you that there's something else more of what God wants me to specifically do, regardless of the outside noise?
Yeah. That's a little question there, but yeah, I mean, if I were to think of like a specific time, it kind of like, and again, you got to understand this is over a course of a lifetime, and up until my age now, but and it will be for every individual, when that first step you take into walking in your purpose, and doing the things that are set out for you. I'd say maybe it started working some of these menial jobs, like I was in fast food or something, and I was doing it for a while, and it's funny because I think certain things they'll happen to you, and they'll happen again in certain ways, but I'll get to that. But you may be like working a job, for example, like I was, and I don't want to say you get tired of it, but like you feel there's something more you should be doing. And I know I heard a lot of times, like people say, that's really what like unsatisfaction and boredom is. It's just that you should be doing something more. It's just right now you're not. And for me, it was like, it just came to a point, I was like, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, this isn't what I'm really capable of. And I just, I remember my boss coming in and they were saying that something to the degree of, oh, you kind of like need this job in a way, or you need to be here. Like, this is you, this is how everyone else kind of falls in line in a way. And I was just like, nah, I want to do my own thing. And then more in a dramatic fashion, the next week I just turned in my 2 week, and again, I was much young, I was in a position where I could do something like that. Wouldn't
That's powerful.
bother me. But even later on, it's that principle of that I applied in, even other situations where it's like I kind of bucked the trend. I kind of decided that I'm not gonna be like everyone else. And even in a spiritual sense, I just feel that you gotta stay true to what you feel God is calling you to do.
Absolutely.
And it could be a point. It can, and a lot of times it does come to a point where it's like it'll be something that is just completely like you'll feel like a fish out of water. Like, is this something I really should be doing? Or, you don't have like full assurance in it, but that's when like I was saying earlier, is that if you want something different to happen, you're gonna have to do different things. And over the course of my life, even situations, and over as you get older, these only decisions you gotta make get bigger and bigger, and sometimes they can become irreversible. And that's especially when you need to pray about these kind of things, because I personally feel decisions are everything.
Right.
And so nowadays, unlike before, when I have to make decisions, not only do I pray, but I also you have to be a full heart in it. You can't be half in, half out. You can't. You have to consider things. I'm not saying be reckless. Have wisdom in what you're doing, and study and learn. But like, you have to be committed.
100%.
And then once you open that door, I mean, you got to be willing to go through it. Like I feel like a lot of times people, they pray for things, but really what ends up happening is that they just get the opportunities, that they get everything. Really, you have all the tools in the kitchen, or all the prep. You could be like a chef in a kitchen that can't cook. You get all this world-class equipment, but you can't do anything with it. And it's a lot of times that's where a test comes. You'll find yourself in a situation where God really has laid out all the steps for you. You just got to be willing to put in your mind, in your spirit, like, hey, I'm gonna do this.
100%.
Again, regardless of the outcome, and
regardless of that.
And that's the thing. Like, we're so conditional. We're very conditional creatures, and we try to rationalize things. Like, no, I'm gonna only do this if this happens, or if this goes my way, or this on this specific date. We're very like that, very particular. But
if to go to statements.
Yeah.
Excellent.
If or then.
Yeah, man.
But you gotta understand that a lot of times, again, if you're really walking in with God and in faith, is that's not how things work.
Yeah.
Not 100%. At all. Not 100%. At all. And all the greatest, like Paul or John, they all had to step outside and do things that they never in a million years thought they would be doing, but they knew there's a bigger purpose for it. And the beauty in it is that a lot of times, and not everyone, but some people even get the opportunity where it's like, again, it comes to a point where it's not even about you anymore. The things you're doing and the steps and actions and decisions you're making, they're really gonna almost outlive you. They're things that are gonna bless other people and help other people in ways you couldn't imagine, right? So you gotta like keep a perspective about that too. And it's hard. Like, this is something that over time will get better and it'll get easier, but it all starts with, you kind of putting that in yourself first. I always say that, the hardest part is just deciding that, something is possible, right? It's not even whether you have the ability or the skills or the mindset, or you went somewhere and you learn something. No, it's just like, if you don't even believe something is possible, it's not possible. Like, I'll just I'll just tell you first and foremost. And again, even going back to what I'm doing now, it's like I had to first put that in my mind. Like, hey, this is something that not only I like to do, but I think fully, could work out as long as I apply myself and give my best effort. I wasn't even thinking about what could go wrong.
Right.
And of course, to a certain degree, these things will naturally just come in your mind. You can't avoid it, but 100%. You have to trust in it. I mean, you just gotta, and again, just sometimes you'll be amazed and surprised where God will take you and what you'll be capable of. Because I'm telling you, I mean, my whole life experience, again, I didn't start with, the nicest means. I'll just put it that. I don't even got to get into much detail, but like, let's just say like someone like me should not be doing the things I'm doing right now. I wholeheartly mean it, and it really it really brings a sense of joy in it, and that's what you'll find too, and that's where I'm at now. Like, I just have a peace over things to do, even if something like just totally, because nowadays I'll get like signs, and I know the signs. Sometimes I feel like God will just speak to you directly. You don't have to even second guess. No, it's up to you if you listen. Right? That's always your choice. Absolutely. But sometimes he'll be as clear as day. It's like, hey, I want you to do this. And nowadays, I just have a peace over it because I know, regardless, I know where I've been, where I am now, and everything between that is my whole. That is me. That is David. That is my entire story. And I can't say that. Oh, I don't trust you now with this thing, knowing what I've already been through and through the highs and lows.
And what you've already got me out of from
Yeah.
before. That's incredible. And what I love what you shared is the essence behind you have to believe that what he's already said is already truth itself. It's going to happen as long as we shared before, is that you have to be the person that is willing to participate in your own rescue, right? And the essence of what you were sharing that was so deep and profound is there's actually a scripture that says that a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. And what's fascinating is I was doing a word study on the word double-minded, and the word double-minded actually means that you don't have a single-hearted commitment and trust in God. And it's like, wow. So that is really the essence of life, is that is why people have fear of the unknowns. That's why they have doubt on what could potentially happen in their lives. And that's why they simply can't see the opportunities that God has already placed right there in front of you. As he's mentioned, you could be a chef, have all of these different resources. You have the abilities to do more with your life and to whip up this amazing dish that can absolutely bless somebody's life. But here it is, if you don't have the confidence to know where those abilities came from, to asking for the wisdom on a day-to-day basis, how to use this in the correct way, right? Then you still, even though that you've been blessed to have the opportunity, you can still actually miss the opportunity altogether because you don't know how to actually act upon the opportunity of what's there. It's just an opportunity, right? Means there is an option for you to decide on whether you're going to participate in the rescue of your own future, or you're going to just sit back and just allow other people to dictate your future. And so that's what I find fascinating about your story is there are a lot of things of people trying to push this status quo on you, specifically for your boss to sit there and tell you that, oh, you specifically need this job. Now, to me, that definitely brings out a different level of intention now, right? And it's fascinating too as well because see, there are a lot of people that could have took those same words, right? It could have still stung, but they would have stayed. They would have settled for a life and would have allowed somebody else to tell them what is actually possible for their lives. But here it was, after that conversation, you had a different course of actions and went into, here's my 2 weeks. Not to prove the person wrong and saying, I don't need this job, but more of like, no, this is actually a wake up call for me. You might have intended for bad, but God intended for good. This is a conscious interrupt that I might have specifically needed at this moment in time to actually understand that, no, all things is possible with God.
Oh.
And so that's what I love about your story. And so now walk us down specifically what it is that you're doing now. So you shared with us about a lot of the environment, the different jobs of what those environments can, condition a lot of people to thinking that this is the only aspect of life of what they have to experience. And so now when you were able to flip that coin to the other side to know that there's not just one side of anything, there's always two sides of every equation. Right. So now when you were able to become so connected to the purpose of what God was telling you that this is possible, what is it that you're now doing now to actually continue to keep moving forward with your purpose?
Yeah. So I'd say probably the biggest thing now is kind of touched on is I was able to, and this came more as and it's kind of funny at first. It came more as a suggestion from a friend. And at first I was like, it sounds interesting, but I was it was just something so different than what I'm used to, and what you would see that I wasn't even sure at the time, even though I've seen works and miracles, So I was kind of having it, but I was like, I'll hear about it. And then the moment I looked a bit more into it, I was like, no, there's something here, right? And I'm so glad I did listen. So for the most part, I'm doing a bit of real estate. And again, this is just something that I'm completely, no one in my family, no one, I know a few people are doing, but they haven't really said, oh, this is how you do it, yada, yada, yada. Right. Totally fish out of water. Right now I'm like in IT, so I'm just, and even in that, I should have maybe started with that first. Like that was even something that I never, thought I would be doing.
Absolutely.
So, but it's part of what I've been saying. It's like you have to be able to kind of buck expectations, and that, even you could even set on yourself. And that's the almost dangerous part about it. Sometimes we don't even notice. We set preconceived notions of what is and what isn't possible.
So true.
Regardless of what even is going around, or what, influence, or, the way you may have been brought up, is. But even now, like I have so much faith in it that, I pretty much, I took out some, basically some risk. There's always risk involved in these kind of things. And, and it took a bit of time too, like even as I was going through it, and working on it, almost like a craft, about a year it took until we finally got our first place, and we were able to like renovate and do some things, and right now we got it up. And it's just crazy. I reflect back and I think, no, that started off as just something that's like a kind of a what if, what if we try this? Yeah. And now here we are, like I said, a year later, we're already on our first one, which is probably gonna, go soon, and which is gonna be a lesson, and we'll just turn that into something that, kind of snowballs. And again, I know, this is just one scenario. It'll look different for everyone, and whether it's something bigger or even smaller. But again, the central message and principle I'm saying is that, don't limit yourself. Don't just accept things for what they are. Because what you don't realize, again, is that I'll put it like this. Like nowadays, the only real fear I have is things I'm not doing, especially things that I feel God wants me to do and I'm not doing. That's the only fear I have of anything. It's not money. It's not, recognition or anything, these, silly things we like to pay too much attention to. It's just more so now I'm just like, if this is what I was able to do when I started to actually listen, imagine what more I can do when I really,
the level of attention is there.
Put my full, foot forward. Yeah. And it's real. And I'm telling you, you'll look back and you say, it's like, wow, like I really was able to accomplish that and, go that far. And again, who knows where we'll go from this? I'm not even saying this is the end. This is only the beginning. I truly feel like it, but it's just reinforcing, even what I'm believing now. And it's like all that started was just simply allowing God to just show me something different and saying like, hey, this could be for you, but you got to be able to kind of meet him there. He's not gonna, as much as he loves you, he's not gonna force you to go to Nineveh, right? Like Jonah, right? You gotta say like, hey, I'll do this, or I'll check that out. I'll attest to what you want me to be ultimately, right? And it will require a bit of sacrifice. Some people might call you crazy. They might say that, what are you doing, kind of thing. Like, like, isn't this easier? Or, don't worry about that. That's not what we do, right? And again, it just goes back to just how much pressure is in society to just conform to one way or another. But, the funny thing is that everything in society is just set up for average, right?
That is.
Whether it's school, whether it's, occupations, or, whatever it is, like it's to fit as many people as it possibly can into one box. But we don't realize is that we all have one life, and every one of us is unique as an individual. Like none of us are the same. There is really no such thing as average.
100%.
If you think about it.
Yeah.
And also in the fact that, again, every day that goes by, that's a day you can't get back. So it's like, why? and again, it is a mindset change. It is a perspective change. But nowadays, I look at things as like, why would I not try? Why would I not, at least attempt?
100%.
Because again, if you already made up in your mind that, it's not possible, or you can't do, and again, I know the usual examples like real estate now, but or you can't do culinary, or you can't do ministry, or you can't go certain places. Like if you already, it's not gonna happen. Because I know I couldn't do this on my own, and that's another thing. You got to be humble enough to accept is that there's no way this would have been possible on my own accord. I don't care how smart, intelligent, and I'll admit I was always told I was a pretty smart individual. Like, oh, you're always gonna go far, do things, but when I look at it, it's like, I mean, really, I don't know, like not this,
yeah, right,
not
right.
this far. I feel like, yeah, you may have certain gifts and abilities, but to reach your full potential, to reach, your true heights, you have to, rely on God. You have to. There's just no way around it. And again, that's for better, for worse, because I know we always talk about like positive things, but even at your lowest moments, if you're going through something right now, whether it's like financials or something emotional or mental, whatever it could be, you also likewise at the same time to realize God is also there. He's not just there like we are, conditionals or predicaments and situations. Though he's there in your highest moments and your lowest moments. And for me in my life, that's how it's always been. And that's what I think has propelled me, is recognizing that. Like when I was going through things that were, I guess you say, traumatic, or things I wish I could have avoided, and where I am right now doing things I never thought possible. He is still the same God today, yesterday and tomorrow. But it just took me recognizing and seeing that, and putting my whole heart and faith in it to really become who I was meant to be all along. And it's a powerful thing, and I wish that everyone could experience it. But again, I know we are all different, and we all go through things. But if that's one message and what testimony I share, is that it doesn't matter who you are, what you look like, God has something for you, but you gotta be able to accept the things that are, and also be able to accept the things that could be, and even will be. I don't even really say it too much now. If I see something, I'm like, I'm on go mode. I'm checking it out. I'm like, okay, you want me to look at this? It might even be something really different, but I don't even see the negatives too much anymore. Almost 2026. It's crazy to even say that, but a lot of big things planned. I hope that we're able to just continue to grow this kind of seed we planted now, or my partner that I'm working with in business, but something that can bless my friends or my families, or whatever it could turn into. That's a new perspective I'm having on it, and because of that, it gives me a new kind of fire in my spirit about it. It gives me new energy about it, because it's like I'm working towards something that's going to change multiple lives, right?
Wow.
And again, coming from where I came from, where opportunity came slim. You were just trying to make it to the next day. In the streets of, like I said, I used to live in the Bronx. It's rough, but for those watching, once you start to progress, other people will start to see that too, I'd say. Yes. And that can be a blessing to them, testimony. They may ask you questions, or that could be a perfect opportunity to share something that might touch somebody, or be the one thing they needed to have confirmation. Like, okay, I'm gonna try, I'm gonna take this class, or I'm gonna go and learn this, or whatever it may be, right? It's an amazing thing. That's all I can really say.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more, because there's so many things that we almost in a way wish that they didn't happen to us. Because as you mentioned, in the moment, we're just only focused on what we don't want to experience. I like to look at it now from the perspective of that if God is so sovereign and he knows all before it happens, right? Because he had an end goal already in mind. He was thinking from the end goal itself before he even created it, right? So he knows everything that's going to happen as if it's a snapshot to his time, right? And so I think about that and I just get curious to know, like, well, if God knows what it is that we're going to go through, why are we the ones asking God to get us out of this situation? But what if we start looking at it from a perspective of, well, if he's already aware that we're in this situation, maybe it's because he actually wants us to be there. Maybe this is an opportunity for him to give us a proper download that says, look, it's time for you to update now. Because in a year down the line, 2 years down the line, maybe 3 years down the line, there is going to be a trial that is going to challenge your faith beyond measure. And so if you don't take the time to study me, to learn from me, to practice the principles to the best of your ability on a day-to-day basis, if you start now, this would allow you to be strong enough to, when that storm actually hits, you will have such a firm foundation on my principles that there's nothing that can actually shake you. Right? And I continue to keep, keeping that at the forefront of our minds. And again, none of us are perfect, but I think this is just a good illustration for us to understand is God already knows what it is that we're going through. And so what we got to do is just keep our eyes on the prize and to not actually put anything above God. We were having a conversation before about the essence as to why it was so important that here it is, Solomon, the richest and the wealthiest man to ever live, the wisest man to ever lived. And here it was, he was sharing with us that it is the fear itself is the beginning to wisdom, right? And the essence behind that is, well, here it is, we're thinking that fear actually means for us to be scared, fearful, doubtful of all of these things that could happen, can happen. But if you actually translate what the word actually means in Hebrew, it actually means to have a deep level of respect for something or someone. And so here it is, he's telling us that we should only have fear in the Lord because he's the one that can give us that knowledge and that wisdom that we actually need to actually give us the keys to every door that has been unlocked in our lives. There's not a single door that we can't go through with God every step of the way. And he's telling us the keys are here. But if you're not asking me for those keys because you're not showing the diligence, there is steps in order to get there. And if you're not willing to go through the steps, don't be like that double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. Whatever he asks, he should not expect nothing. And so what we got to do is get so congruent with the decisions that God is wanting us to make is there for a specific reason. Like, it's funny how the opportunities that he gives us is simultaneously, you got abundance here and you got lack here. And he's giving us the opportunity for us to decide which one is most important. Which one are we going to actually choose and make a decision that this is what we're going to focus on. Or we're going to allow the problems of this world to be so much bigger and we're going to have so much respect for these problems and think that now we're putting this above God and his capabilities or what he's capable of being able to do. At that point, you got your priorities messed up. And so hopefully this story actually paints the picture between understanding that we're living in uncertain times, yes. But there is a different way that you can actually move in your life when you start to understand that you don't have to do any of this on your own. That you can go to the direct of the source that knows all, seen all, and can get the download that you need to specifically having and taking the best course of action to that same situation of how you can actually be successful in that arena of your life. And so, what is fascinating to me is the story of how you said that, a person like me, we come from humble beginnings, but here it is, we are now, and everything seems like a dream. And it's fascinating because that is the essence of our lives. That's what it's supposed to look like when we're stretching ourselves beyond measure, when we're allowing God to be, the word that we listen to and not the outside noise of what everybody else is telling us is possible. So yeah, share with people, where it is that they can find your website, your brand, and just again how they can kind of, keep up in touch with you and things of that nature.
You can reach me at www.taxopolyllc.com. It's kind of a play on like tax monopoly because I'm more so on now on the tax deed side of things. And honestly, I wouldn't even mind if this came to a point where I was doing this full time. Right now it's kind of more of a side hustle, but it was still a chance and a risk I took, and I'm already starting to see things that again never thought possible. But
100%.
But yeah, if you're interested, you want to track what we're doing, keep up to date, or even if you want to, spare a word or two, definitely appreciate it. But you can kind of email, and you also reach me at business@taxopoly or taxopolyllc.com. That's our email domain. I can't say it enough, man. Just trust God. I mean, that's really all it comes down to. And also be about your business. A lot of times as I shared earlier, Elijah, I feel the most underrated part of Jesus' story is the fact that he was just so kind of focused in a way. Whether it's from town to town, if you wanted to hear the word or you didn't, that was your choice. But regardless, he was on the move, yes. on his purpose, and I feel a lot of times as Christians, that's the part we kind of just, don't pay too much attention for, the part we lack so much. And it's unfortunate because I feel it's just as powerful as the rest of the gospel, which is, love and, sacrifice and what he's ultimately done on the cross for us, but also just how on his purpose he was. He didn't, come to play around. He didn't have time to, in a way. And that's how we have to be too. It's like the way I look at my life now, it's like I don't have time to really worry or time to, fear. Unless it's something that I feel I should be doing or not. That's their story. But I'm just now so focused on what I'm doing now because now I can see, what could possibly be the end goal of this. That it just brings a new light to it. And again, it doesn't have to be something, like this. It could be anything, If you have a dream or a goal, that's that, and you feel you have some gift and ability in that, you take that and you go, that's, I feel sometimes it's God leading you in that direction, but you have to 100%. Be the one to take that first step, right? And you will never know unless you try, don't just automatically write it off. That's the most tragic part. You see a lot of people's stories that really could have done something amazing in their life. And again, I want to emphasize it's not one direction or another. It could be, ministry, it could be business, it could be anything. But you have to, first be wise enough to see that as opportunity, and also know when and how to go and make those decisions. But yeah, but I couldn't thank you enough for this opportunity, Elijah. It's always been a pleasure meeting and talking with you, and also accompanying me on this journey.
Absolutely.
But we're definitely excited to see what's coming next, and keep you in the loop.
100%. 100%. And it's just fascinating too as well because we live in times where there's a lot of people right now losing their jobs.
Yeah.
And we're seeing it all around us. And we have been even victims to that same system, right?
Yeah.
Like even for me is I would have never known that within 3 years of times, 3 years ago specifically, had God not given me the opportunity for me to become more curious minded on other ways of how to multiply my money, find other ways to diversify. If that opportunity that he blessed me with, if I didn't take it, 3 years later, I would have been hit with the unfortunate circumstance of losing my job.
Yeah.
Now, the reality is most people could say, well, yeah, that's not your fault, right? That was during a time of COVID and all these different things. Yeah. But simultaneously, I like to look at it is God is always giving you, again, the resources and the opportunities to do something with them. And too many times we like to do what is called the excuses themselves. And I like to say, that excuses themselves only sounds good to the person that's sharing them. And so what that actually means is that the excuses that you make, sometimes you're not even able to hear them because to you, you're so close to the situation, to you it's true. But simultaneously, everybody else around you knows that, but that's not what's really stopping you. What's stopping you is your level of belief in the outcome. And so that was a very critical time that had I not been faithful on that journey, my family that I so love would have been at jeopardy, and I would have been at fault for not having the confidence to know that God was leading me down a path for me to grow into somebody different, to get new skill sets that I didn't know. All of it was foreign. But it was in a 3 years process where it actually allowed me to understand what it is that I specifically need to know so that I could be profitable for now a year and a half completely without a job at all. And the one thing that I was able to provide for my family was specifically learning already how to multiply the money of what I've already been given. And so what we're sharing here is lessons that we've learned specifically that it goes way beyond just simply knowing the how-tos, the if to go to statements. It goes way beyond knowing how to do something. But if you're not the person that's actually willing to apply what it is that you actually know because you don't have the proper mindset, or you may even be around people that are telling you that this is not possible, and somewhere down the line, you may actually start to believe it. And so what you got to do is you got to get yourself around like-minded individuals that can actually give you a conscious interrupt on a day-to-day basis. Imagine if you were able to have conversations like this on a day-to-day basis. Would you be continuing to still think the same? Probably not, right? And so we hope that this video blessed you in any kind of way, but if it did, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, because at the end of the day, we're all here on a mission. And as he mentioned before, the purpose that you have, yes, it is final, but specifically, it actually starts to unravel more in front of you. It's like opening up a gift for the first time, and there's so many things that are coming undone, and you're experiencing this gift for the first time, and all of a sudden it keeps changing form. And so what you have to remember is the path in terms of how to get closer to your purpose can actually change. The vehicle itself can change, but your purpose remains the same. And there's different pathways of how to get there, but what you got to do first is get yourself in alignment with the path. And just the things that you can't control, you focus on those. But the things that you can't control, you just give that to God.
Yeah. Amen.
So stay blessed.